Welcome to the Dental Mastermind podcast, hosted by Dennis Marvel of Fortune Management. Dennis is a managing partner at Fortune Management and is one of the nation's leading authorities in the rapidly changing business of dentistry. On Dental Mastermind, he interprets data and concepts into actionable steps that have the power to transform your practice.
One of the biggest challenges facing most practitioners today is actually how do you find and retain the right caliber and enough people to fill all the roles that you have. I could probably place 150 clinicians tomorrow if we could find that many. So I know what that pain feels like. The challenges are numerous in that there are fewer people available for the jobs now than the openings that we have now. So we're literally going to have to change our thinking about our hiring. All big companies have always recruited away from their competitors. Microsoft and Amazon are always poaching each other's employees, but in the dentistry profession, it's a very small, close-knit community. We're often afraid to do that kind of stuff. I always encourage people to respect their professional relationships, number one. If you're gonna hire somebody from somebody you know, call them and tell them. And sometimes it's okay to tell the employee you have to resign first, then you'll call the person and tell them. And so you want to maintain that professional relationship first, but you've got to be okay with hiring people from other firms, because the reality is you all want somebody with experience, but you can't find anybody with experience if you're not willing to hire them from a competitor or train them yourself and give them that experience. Those are the only two options you have. So we've got to change the mindset, number one. Then we have to deploy a lot of tools that we haven't deployed before. We used to go from running an ad in the newspaper, and then that converted to Craigslist, and then that has now converted to Indeed, which is the largest one out there at the moment. And what most people are missing are some of the more basic tools of hiring. And one of those is obviously networking. You need to let everybody in your community, in your neighborhood, know that you've got a position open and you're looking for somebody. Start with your patient base. You have no idea how many people are qualified to fulfill some of those positions. Now, for some of the registered positions, they've got to go through licensing and that kind of stuff, so you've got to find somebody that already has those credentials. But for a lot of the positions, you can hire somebody in and cultivate them, and they can learn those skills as we go. For a lot of doctors who have been in practice for a long time, they can remember the days that they trained every assistant and every hygienist. Most state laws prevent that now, but not on the assistant front as much as it is on the hygiene front. When it comes to the other employees, we need to think a little bit outside of the box. What are the traits that you're really looking for a key employee on the admin side of your business, as an example? And one of the best results programs I've done lately is I actually started running ads at the beginning of COVID in the food and beverage section because everybody was getting laid off. And the headline was literally, "Are you a young mom that's sick of the F&B rat race? And if so, we've got a professional job with banker's hours we'd like to train you into." And we hired some really incredible sterilization techs that are now assistants. We hired some incredible assistants that are now front desk people. We hired one young lady from a coffee shop that is probably the best office manager in the network right now. So thinking outside of the box can act a lot. So when we think of this idea of networking, why aren't we using social media? Facebook, as an example, gives you the ability to target people who work in the dental industry. And it's not active applicant searches. It's passive, meaning that if you put a post out there going, "We're looking for a great dental hygienist," everybody with that qualification, it's going to show up on their phone. That's a way to reach people who may not even know they're looking for a job. So we have to develop a lot of different tactics, but the one thing I want to make sure we address is you've got to have not only the culture, but you've got to have the business structure that really supports the best employees in the world. There is no way that you can create a Class A practice with a bunch of Class C employees. And yet in dentistry, we've always been taught, let's hire people inexpensively and provide them with very few benefits. And that's the model that works. That's what keeps our payroll costs down. Well, what I can tell you is that the real equation to solving the payroll cost model is increased productivity. It's not decreased wages. And for a lot of us, we look at the wages of our front desk people and our dental assistants, and they're pretty close to the same of fast food workers and grocery store workers. And during COVID, there were a lot of people getting emergency pay to bag groceries. And so their pay was actually exceeding half of your payroll. And when people can go out and get other jobs like that, they're certainly not as rewarding, but they give them the money they need in this kind of an inflationary environment. When I meet with a team for the first time, and I do always get permission to say this from the doctor, and it always makes them a little bit nervous, is I tell them I want them to be the highest compensated team in their neighborhood. And it always makes the doctor cringe a little bit, but I'm going to say because they deserve it, because they are the most productive team. So if you design your system properly, it's physically impossible for you to have to pay your team more money without you making more money. The problem is our current environment has forced that model to be reversed, and so what we need to do is get back to it. So what I try to do is establish what is a fixed payroll percentage of every dollar of collections that comes in the door. And then we tell the team, as our production and collections grow, we're going to keep that percentage fixed. So let's just assume 27% of your collections goes to your payroll, so 27 cents on every dollar. And if we can keep that and we can grow the collections by 50%, well, now there's 50% more dollars available to reward the team. Some of that can be hourly wages, some of it can be incentives, some of it can be training, some of it can be benefits. I'm a huge proponent of helping people become financially independent, of getting them the health care they need and all of these things. And yet very few private dental practices are able to offer all these benefits because they think it's prohibitively expensive. My belief is that it's not an expense, it's an investment in your people. And if you want to attract the best people, you've got to provide the best environment for them to work in.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dental Mastermind. For more information on upcoming live events in the Northwest region, please visit mastermindnw.com. This has been brought to you by Fortune Management, helping you create an extraordinary practice for an extraordinary life.